Talk about Kirks. We're live on location at
Hi everybody, welcome to Kirks Grocery's first artist studio visit. We are at 407 in downtown Billings, and up above 407 is the artist studio of Jane Waggoner Deschner. Some of you may have seen Jane Waggoner Deschner's work at Kirks Grocery. It's fantastic stuff, and today you get to see what's in her studio, her process, and maybe some other surprises. So follow me and we'll head inside. We also have some new technology yet again, so you'll get to watch us learn how to use it.
Sandy's watching with us.
Sandy Navarskis, hey Sandy. So let's ring the bell and see if we can go inside.
Greetings, Mary Serby.
Hi John Lodge, how are you
Good,
doing?
you're right on time.
Hello,
and,
LD.
and Shane Delacurk. Shane Delacurk. Great to see you. Fantastic.
Oh,
Come
yeah,
on
this
in.
is-
We'll transcend up to Jane's studio.
Are you ready to transcend with the camera?
Okay.
I am. Shane's having a hard time with this camera.
Shane's having a
The
hard
new
time with the
gimbals,
camera.
new
We're
gimbals
just gonna
being wild.
manually adjust it, and now you take control.
There we go. Oh.
Nope. Might be time for Mary to take control.
Oh, hold on. We're coming back.
And
Okay.
here we go.
Let's say hi back to these people. John's here.
John Lodge.
Yeah, there. Hello, everybody. Welcome, 407.
Artist John Lodge at 407. You may see LB in the background. LB is always part of these events, unless it's a no dogs, no children event, which is not the case tonight. So follow us.
My cousin Eli's with us tonight saying, hi, pup. Love the pup.
Yes, he's such a good pup. All right, we ready?
I'm trying to get this here.
Is our equipment
Whoa.
ready? Our equipment
No.
does not like the stairs.
I'm just going to hold it here. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
Oh
So
my
we're
God.
heading upstairs to where Jane has her studio. You can see it's a beautiful space. There we go. And you can see that Jane and John also have their own collection. There we go. That's a much better corner than we had a minute ago.
Oh, the corners keep coming.
If we keep on coming, we'll find Jane at the end of the hallway. We
What
also
up,
have
Eli?
Shane
Thanks for
Dillinger.
joining us.
Who said thanks for joining us?
No, I just said Eli's here with us.
Oh, nice. Hello, Eli.
Thank you for being here. So Shane asked me to show you where I sit every night in my chair and stitch on these things and watch MSNBC.
And that's what we're going to do.
And that's what, Rachel's not on right now, but because of what all is happening in Minneapolis. But we'll just keep making it work, I guess.
Yeah, so you want to talk, Mary? You want me to come around? Or?
Should we go in your studio?
Sure,
Or did
come
you
on.
want to talk about what's
Oh,
here?
no, I just sit here and there's my, and the thread and everything, and I sit for 3 or 4 or 5 hours a night and stitch. And watch Rachel and,
Let's talk about these materials first, maybe.
oh, okay. This is DMC cotton thread and different colors.
So when you have the source photo, how do you make your selections of the thread colors?
So this is a whole new thing. This is the third one I've done this week. So these are the COVID masks that I've been stitching. So usually it's 3 pieces of thread. These are 2 colors within each one, and I just see what kind of looks good to me. I learned when I was in art school to mix your colors, mix your black, mix your colors. So that's why I use 2 or 3 colors of thread together. I don't know if it makes any difference, but that's what they told me to do, so I keep doing it.
So pretty much you take a piece of this thread and you separate out the strands.
Yes.
And then you mix the colors and reconstitute those strands.
So the DMC thread is, there's 6 strands in each.
Yeah, each thread is 6 strands.
Each thing out of the skein is 6 strands, and so I separate one out of each 2 and then mix them together to make this color, which looks a lot like that color, but I know the difference.
I always wonder that when I work with thread and I'm blending my colors too. But I think even if people don't have an instant reaction to the color mixing, I think it still affects the overall piece a lot.
Well, I hope so. It's what I learned in school.
So you've already stitched the hair on this one.
Yeah, so I was working on this, I was listening to a webinar today, and so I worked on the hair. And then this is what the back looks like. So this is a new thing using, I haven't done this before. This is the verso of the photograph.
Okay.
So I make a pattern, I scan it in, and make
Silence
this
that noise on my phone for
pattern.
1 second, everybody.
that is the reverse of the photograph. And it just seems, I'm not quite sure if I understand all of this because this is only the 3rd one of these that I've done. With the masks and the time, and it doesn't need to be the face, the photographic face. It's the verso. And I'm not quite sure why yet, but I'll figure it out in the next few weeks.
I love the fact that you flip it over and you see the original photograph.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, John keeps wanting to see that, but
And what's this photograph from? Where'd you?
It's
I know you
just-
collect vintage photographs and
it's
such.
just a
Where'd you get it?
studio portrait I got a long time ago. I don't know where it came from. And he seemed like one that would work. I've got a couple more in there I can show you that were done. I have the hardest time learning about the eyes and the eyeballs, but I'm working on it. So these are the different threads. So the tie will be these 2 colors, the suit will be those 2 colors, the hair is those 2 colors.
And do you take those off like Pantones off the computer, or like?
No,
how do
this
you-
is
you
each DMC thread has a number.
Uh-huh.
So this will be I think this is the suit. So it's number 838 and 3031. So I always keep track of those.
You blend them together.
Just because it's a documentation.
So do you file all of these away afterwards in a cabinet? No, I guess.
So I have notebooks full of patterns that I finished, and then these get either stuck in another notebook or framed for whatever. If anybody, wants to do whatever. So. Okay, wandering down the hall.
Let's follow Jane down the hall with Shane appearing for the first time.
And we come into Jane Waggoner Deschner's studio.
Yep.
I want to start
It's
where
a pretty
so-
amazing place.
Well, I was going to start at the computer because I think that's where you start your days after you get up.
I
in the
do.
mornings.
So I get up and I walk down the hall and I poke on the hot water thing and I get it boiling for tea, and then I walk down here.
When you get on your computer, we're going to go through all this.
Oh, we're having some slight technical
Yeah,
difficulties.
we're working with technical difficulties. It's a theme in these live
I think-
streams.
Actually,
Let's
Shane,
go
if you
live.
hold this phone, I think I'm going to take it out of the high-tech scenario.
Hold the phone.
And, okay. Now we've got control of the situation. Here we go.
We're back to like our first episode, phone and hand.
All
Phone
right.
in hand, which is lots of control.
So I read the news, I take my blood pressure,
You take your blood pressure
Well-
every day in the morning?
well, almost every day. I have polycystic kidney disease, and you're supposed to keep your blood pressure between a certain level, so I'm not doing very well with that, but I'm trying.
Maybe because you're combining it with reading the news.
Well, but it's too low. I need
Oh.
to get it up. So anyway, it's a work in progress. But
We've got a few people. Marla Goodman says it's great to see you all. Susan Barnett says, hi, Jane. Thanks for inviting us in. And Sandy Davarskas says, such a beautiful, light studio.
it's wonderful. We'll show you the view out the window. The view out the window isn't as awesome as the light that comes in, but I do like it. So I read the news and all that, but I check obituaries. And oh, this doesn't look like a good one.
So how did you get to this exact funeral home?
Oh, I was looking. This is in Rhode Island, and so I checked for different states. You can. Now I won't go back. You can ask them to add to your list of notices.
Okay. Of when they get a new list?
Yeah, when a new list. And
Okay.
so I read them and then I record them on these note cards.
Like lines you like?
Yeah, something that appeals to me. So I might record this. One of his main passions was always working on his system for the car, but also like creatively constructing gadgets for around the house and repairing anything that was broke.
Yeah. So
So-
really tight glimpse into who someone is.
And so last Sunday, I don't know if anybody saw it, in the New York Times, the front page and several other pages were, they took 1,000,
Of the people who died? Or?
Anecdotes from the 1,000 of the 100,000 people who had died. And it's exactly the kind of thing that I record.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Because, I mean, for me, I love your work because it expresses humanity in really, human terms always, and since you take from sources out there in the world, it's as close to people as you can get. They're usually loved ones writing about them.
I only use the not professionally written obituaries, so the anonymous friends and family. So, and this was exactly what all this was, but in very shortened form.
Do you think you'll stitch that whole front page at some point?
Oh, wow, that's an idea. So here's somebody, June Beverly Hill, 85 Sacramento. No one made creamed potatoes or fried sweet corn the way she did.
Yeah.
So it's about empathy, and that we're all the same.
Yeah.
So anyway,
It's those
It
little
was-
things that make us who we are.
it was a very great validation of what I do.
Oh, that's great. How many obituaries do you think you look at? in a
Oh,
day before you
it
find
depends.
your?
I have 4 boxes full, like this,
Okay.
of note cards.
And then they are cataloged by motto.
So there's mottos. I did a bunch of pieces. This is handwork. I'm working on bowling. I've got some frames that have all the stuff around the edge. So when people say, I talk about love, like, he loved his Lord and his family were his life. So they'll go in those frames. This is kind of fascinating. Oops. I've also kept track of how people say that their loved one has died, because it's kind of fascinating how that's portrayed. Left her family and friends for an eternal life, graduated from this life to the next, died sitting in his favorite chair, quietly entered the nearer presence of God. I think it's fascinating how people don't say died, or do say died.
Yeah. How they say died.
How they say died. Yeah. So anyway, I collect all that stuff, and that's my first morning, that and the news, and whatever else comes in.
Do you drink coffee or tea?
I have tea.
And
And
a little tea warmer.
Yeah, and keep it warm. So,
Nice.
yeah, that's first thing. And then,
So, and then at that point, you decide over here, you're either pull something out of here you've wanted to stitch, or you found something.
most mornings are on the computer one way or another.
Mhm.
So if it's...
That's when I email you.
Yeah, the business, or if I'm doing an application for something, that's what happens in the morning. What else? What else do I do? I don't know.
So then you get up from your computer.
And,
You've done,
and
I mean, that's
email
kind of what
people,
I do. Yeah,
and
We have
then
a-
it's like lunchtime, and then it's time to get over there for making stuff.
And have you thought about lunch already? Do you already have a plan for lunch?
Yeah, usually, and dinner too.
No.
So we have a question from Stan Parker for you, Jane, and he says, why and when did you start this routine?
I've been collecting obituaries for a long time. I had several boxes full of ones I saved out of the Gazette that got smashed with the house.
Do you want to talk about that at all tonight? Is that
The smashed house? Sure.
You don't have to do it right now. I mean, we
Yeah.
can sit down maybe.
Yeah. I find that, how do I say it? So why obituaries? When family and friends write the obituary, they pick out the best part of somebody and they try to get to the essence of who they are, and there's awesome anecdotes, and I've always just found them fascinating. The professional ones, like in the New York Times and all that stuff, they're different. But that's fine. It's nothing wrong with it. I do belong to the Society of Professional Obituary Writers, which they renew me for $25 a year. But
And how many obituaries have you written on your own?
none.
Oh, okay. You're just prepared.
I just read them, and it's humanity, and it's people who love this person write about them.
And so I wasn't sure if Stan Parker, let's talk about it. So you work how many days a week?
Every day.
Every day, 7
Every
days a
day.
week.
Yeah, no, the weekends aren't different than
Yeah.
the weekdays. So, except I don't have to cook dinner on Saturday night because we eat popcorn and watch a movie.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, so that's great. So you get up. I just love Jane. First off, Jane and John here are just great friends and inspirations here in Billings. And for me, I was so happy when Kirks Grocery opened that I was able to approach them as people and just say I'd like to show their artwork because, it's completely different. Maybe we'll see some of John's tonight, and how they interact as people and their inspirations on artist journeys like me, to just see how they work. You get to see how someone like Jane, what she does every day, because it didn't happen. This is probably not what she was doing when she was 30, maybe at 50, like having a routine this hard. I don't know. But,
At 50, I went back to graduate school.
okay.
Um,
Here in Billings?
I went to Vermont College. I went to a low residency
Okay.
MFA program, and it was perfect for me because you go for 10 days, and then you come home and you work for 6 months, and you go back for 10 days,
Okay.
and you can work all you want.
Which is something we should talk about, is Jane's proficiency at residencies. You've been all over the States. Have you done them outside of the United States?
I've been to Canada. Banff is the only one I've been to outside the U.S.
Okay. Do you want to go sit down and then we'll look at curiosity so we can just talk, or should we walk around your room?
I think you should walk around a little bit. It's so interesting.
Okay.
Talk about anything that interests you, Jane.
So, well, we can sort of, if you work around. So, I did this a while back, so I could pick colors for my thread.
I'm
There's
extremely
also-
jealous of this
there's
because I
also
work with
big
thread.
bundles over there.
I like
but-
how they're on pieces of plexiglass to move easy and still be able to see through.
You know, and I had to pay the guys at Econoblast to cut them the right size, but it's been the best money I ever spent.
Oh, wow. I love these. I'm a big fan of Jane's found doily art, and I love them over this lamp. That's great.
So, yeah, I was supposed to have a show at the Art Museum this August, and because of everything that happened, it got postponed to October of 2021, which is awesome. Because, as Susan said, it gives me time to make more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
So-
just to see the differences how stuff is. So I think you've only been doing these stacked doilies for a couple years.
Not even that long. How did I start it? I don't even know how come I ended up with some. And then I got more and more, and these are not symmetrical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, I know how I got started. So I was going to Goodwill to collect frames that I could then paint with black gesso to put my Remember Me pieces in. And then I would walk back because I was looking for placemats, and the kind that we like that you had some dinner on. And there were all these doilies and Afghans and stuff that had just been given away. So I started buying the doilies back when they were like really cheap, and now they're more expensive. But
You drove that market.
I guess so. But I just think about the hours and hours of that a woman, I'm guessing mostly a woman, would spend, you know, making these things just because.
And you have an eye to know which ones are made by hand and which ones are
Well,
made
I've kind of
mechanically.
learned as time goes by, but
And you usually just use the ones made by hand, correct?
some of them have some made in China, but
Okay. We're just trying to get the full extent of your tools.
thank you.
Toolkit.
Yeah. And we have a comment from Elijah that says, I love that Jane is doing what she can to remember and respect those who have passed.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the best things about her work is I love humanity, and I think we work in similar ways of just like remembering and pushing the thought that people are equal, or that humanity, every single person has a story, like no matter the smallest. And you see that every time with your work. And some of the power of Jane's work is the Remember Me series is how many? 800, 900?
Almost 900.
Almost 900 pieces of an obituary that she has harvested, and a found photograph that she's found. And a lot of times I know you go with Robert Jackson, and you guys like different kind of photographs. Like he likes a more professional photograph, and you're looking for a photograph that more just gives a glimpse.
I'm
of a
everything
person.
else.
Yeah, which is a great person to collect with. And so when you put these quotes and show somebody's humanity with someone who we don't know, but we know they're a human, it's just, they become so poignant. The more you read them, the more you see them. I love them. They'll never be enough, and I'll never not. They're right. I don't know if these are Remember Me behind you.
No,
These are
those
not. These are from the
from
mom.
Theodore Roosevelt quotes. But all those notebooks down there on the bottom shelf are full.
Down here?
Oh yeah. Well, all this bunch. So
Oh wow.
Oh, wow. And just stop on one so we can just zoom in, just in case there's someone who hasn't seen your work.
I like this. Her front door was always open, as was her heart.
Yeah.
And is that the woman that the obituary was written
No.
about?
There'd be no way I could do that because I'd only have like one, maybe, or two. So
This is like what you said. Like, this is not going to be in the New York Times. She even once performed CPR on a drowned baby chick who went on to live a long and happy life. Like, that's a beautiful story, you know.
Yeah.
I saved a bird. A bird flew into Kirks today, or
Okay.
yesterday, and I couldn't find it yesterday. And today I was able to catch a bird that had been in Kirks with a towel. I was on the ladder catching birds with towels, and we let it free. 24 hours. It's been a whole 24 hours inside
I'm
Kirks.
going to give a shout out to Lisa Rinaldo, who saves birds at the Yan, too.
Oh, great.
Pigeons in the courtyard.
And these just
Anyway,
go on and
they
they're
go
just,
on, and
and that's the
they're all
beauty, because
found
there's so many
photos.
people in the world. There's so many people.
Oh,
And you've referenced them
this
all.
is nice. So, anyway, I just hope I get remembered. Whoops, excuse me, John. This way.
For the Remember Me, or for
Just
your
in
life's
life
work?
in general. Well, you know.
Yeah, so I was saying a little bit ago, as an artist, you know, who looks forward to growing older and becoming more mature in my own artwork, to see Jane's practice, to see John's practice, how different they are, and yet they both produce work. And Jane, the amount of work she just does is just, I can't even fathom it. Like right here, so we're looking at these binders. She's already showed us binders down there. Here we have more photographs that are already punched, and the papers.
Let me zoom in. It's hard to see that it's punched, so let me... if we hold it up to the light, I bet we could really see the punching. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This leads to the part of the day. When do you do this? After lunch, right?
After dinner.
After
Oh,
dinner.
sometimes I punch in the afternoon and listen to stuff on my computer.
Yeah.
I've just finished 5 seasons of Jane the Virgin,
I've heard
which
that's good.
is awesome. It's a Mexican telenovela in the U.S. and the people are, I don't know. It's great. It took me a while to get into it, but then it was pretty wonderful. And yesterday it was this is our last season. This is our last episode, and here's our last season.
And so you punch these holes
Oh, I
ahead
can
of
show you.
time, and then you sew.
So
I'll be right back. You guys are in charge.
Because we just saw the sewn ones, and for people who don't know your process,
So I scan the photo into the computer. Then I typeset this in Photoshop. I tape the photo to the back of the pattern.
okay.
Then I punch the holes. I can show you the tool over there. And then I'm able to stitch through the holes.
Okay, and we see the back of the stitched one that's been stitched through the holes.
I used to knit a lot, but it made my hand hurt. So this doesn't make my hand hurt at all, my thumb.
Really? Just
Because there's no pressure, there's no tension.
it's just paper.
It's just back and forth.
Uh-huh.
So let's see.
Here's your Jesus collection.
Yeah, here's my I just hung my new Jesus is up. I
Is
rescued.
there a way how does Jesus get? Well, we got everything from disco ball Jesus to your classic in ring.
So that's Holly Paris's.
Yeah.
It was one of the early pieces in the collection. This was actually the first one, this clock I got in Tijuana, where the hands go from an interesting part of Jesus' anatomy. I just rescue them from thrift stores.
Yes. How much time do you spend at a thrift store a week, or do you go daily
Well,
or every
not
other
anything
day?
for a while,
Yeah.
and I used to go all the time. So, I just rescue them. And when I was
That's great.
in junior
Rescuing
high.
Jesus. I love this. That's a good
Junior
idea.
high, I was a Unitarian at the time. There was no Universalist, and we learned about the life and teachings of Jesus, and it's really what we all should do and be. So,
Yeah.
So this is the stuff I've done since we've been stuck here in the COVID thing. If you're
These COVID times.
so these I've just done this last week.
Oh, so these are your silhouette series. Oh no, these are.
These are different.
Whoa. Okay.
These are with the mask. And then this is like remember the other masks, Shane?
Domino mask?
It's like the domino masks. These are like COVID masks.
Okay, I'm back.
I love the way the corner of this photo kind of retains its own integrity, and that the mask loops around it like the ears.
Mm-hmm.
I
There's
love that
a-
approach.
I don't know if anybody saw this.
Oh, and I got to see the juxtaposition real quick, Jane.
Sure.
We
The
have
other
Mary on this here, and this is with.
thing- the other thing I watched was Schitt's Creek,
Mm-hmm.
and Dan Levy wrote it and is starred in it, and sorry, I do this all the time. He posted this thing on Twitter last week, which I saw via something else, where he said, I wrote it down so I remember. Recontextualizing mask wearing. It's not a loss of freedom, but the simplest, easiest act of kindness you can do in a day. Not for yourself, but for other people. So I think masks are important.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd make pieces about masks.
And I love that you responded so quickly. I mean, to them. And I mean, this is such a classic, from what I've seen in your work, of the ones we have had at Kirks.
Yeah.
You know, of the different series. I just love. I love when you do the cutouts and the stitching and the multi-layers. We had a lot of the domino mask
Yes.
series over there.
So
Wow, so, you know, which is interesting because you have the domino mask over your eyes and then you have this mask over your mouth. I
and
guess-
neither one really disguises you.
Yeah. These ones that, you know, and I love the shape that now we know this is a mask. You know, we'll always, you know, if you would have showed me that shape without the head like 2 years ago, I don't know if I would be
wouldn't
like,
have
that's a
known.
mask. And now you just like, and this is the fancy ones that come up over the nose.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble. I haven't quite figured out the eyes yet, but we'll get there.
Well, our eyes change when we wear a mask.
Well, but how to stitch them? I don't know if it's too effective yet, but anyway.
Those are powerful. I love those.
Sandy Davarska says that's beautiful. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
I mean, and you're covering. I mean, I don't know, covering up the past. These people are probably not alive anymore,
Yeah.
and you're using them, and then I don't know, masking them. It's such a beautiful, Jane.
It's where we are now.
It's so beautiful.
Well, thank you. So I this was the first piece I made after we all got quarantined.
Which was about March 13th, March 10th, somewhere in
It's
here.
about the time I got back from being at a residency in Minnesota. And Susan Barnett said she liked the silhouette series, so I thought, well, I'll make one of a birthday cake. And these are all people celebrating their birthdays. And now, for
Now
a
they
while
can't.
anyway, we won't think about singing happy birthday without thinking about how long you're supposed to wash your hands. Because
That's amazing to pull that together. I hadn't got there with this yet.
Well, I was
I
thinking
was
about
just
how you
thinking
can't
sweets
gather
and
and have
cake,
a birthday.
yeah.
I thought of that, you know.
So,
And I love that. So, like, one of the details I love about your work. So, you're taking these old pages out of the books, the
Photo albums.
albums, and then you're attaching the white arrows, the corner hinges, or
Photo squares.
the photo squares.
the corners.
Those,
Some
those don't
that
come
way.
off there. You
They
put
do.
those on there.
Some come that way, and some I add.
Okay.
Um,
I love it because it's just like I use found paper and stuff. So I would, if this was, I was building that, I would be so stoked that those little corners were on there. I'd be like, yeah, but it wouldn't occur to me to also then take ones that aren't on there and add to that. And I love that you took that detail and you.
well, I think on
this one
must have been missing because there should be one here. So these must have been, I can't remember right now, the original photo pages, vintage photo pages. So,
And so yeah, the silhouette series, we've had a couple at Kirks.
you had the
We had
car.
man and woman.
Oh
the
yeah,
car.
and then you had the car, and you had the baby.
Yep. Oh, the baby's a good one.
So
Ooh, look at this.
anyway,
Behind the
so I kinda got-
scenes. Kirk's Grocery behind the scenes.
So I got kind of on a roll.
Underneath.
Yes.
So there's some dogs. I got off on dogs, and then actually I thought about Susan again, and she has a cat. So this is all people holding cats.
And the silhouette is of a woman holding a cat or
A girl, yeah.
holding a cat.
It's actually this girl.
So it's actually
This
this
girl.
girl.
It's a silhouette of this.
Oh, wow. That is wild.
Your art is so clean. I love it. You know? Oh, is this how you don't like to be called clean? Or?
No, that's fine. It's just that's
No, it's good.
I mean, it's clean and precise, and then it conveys such deep emotion and connection and sort of that imprecise nature of being a human being. Unpredictable.
It's conceptual too. I mean, I think what really, it's visually beautiful art. It's visually unique art, and then on top of that, you layer these deep concepts of humanity and love and respect, death,
and
life.
it's about
Whoa.
control, and it's about I can't get the right word right.
Here we
this
have
minute.
a family made of family.
That's the last one.
Wow.
There's a couple others. This is the most recent one.
Well,
I
let's
made.
do a couple comments while I've got them on the screen. Sandy said, she meant your statement about masks was beautiful and simple, and said this is nice. And then Susan Barnett says, love the birthday silhouette and the cats. The weight of accumulation in your work is amazing. What would you write for your own obituary? Deep question, Susan.
Fortunately, we don't have to write our own obituaries. Those who love us write them.
So who's that going to fall on?
I'm guessing my kids.
One of the Johns?
Yeah, probably my son John will have to do that because I am more self-deprecating than perhaps somebody who wrote an obituary would be. So I don't know.
And Jason Jam asks, has any gallery visitor ever recognized a family member in your work while attending one of your art shows?
It happened once, and I can't. You remember that, John? I can't quite remember. Were you there when that happened?
That was at the Missoula Art Museum.
Yeah,
wasn't
what
it?
was
The
it?
piano player, the concert pianist.
I don't remember.
Somebody knew the concert pianist
Oh,
from Chicago. I think it's just right there. There he is, right there.
Yeah,
Somebody-
Clyde Lithgow.
Yeah,
This
Clyde.
guy?
Yeah, Lithgow.
Right here?
Yeah, he's a
Well, you
concert
have it on the
pianist.
wall.
And she had that as a PR photograph.
I got a whole archive of his work, of snapshots
Yeah.
and studio portraits and press photographs. He was a pianist. He was British, and he got famous in the 50s and 60s. I just bought him on eBay, and then it became a fascinating story because he was gay, but he was closeted, and he had a trauma during World War II. His mother didn't hug him until she was 92, but he used art, and there's a great NPR. The guy who used to interview everybody on NPR.
Ira Glass?
No, not NPR, on public television. The guy who got described.
Charlie Rose?
Charlie Rose. There's a great Charlie Rose interview of him, and art saved him. He was famous, he had a lot of money, and then he lost it all because he got depressed, and Leonard Bernstein was his friend. Then he ended up living in New York City and performing at homeless shelters.
Wow.
With other young artists. And that was the wonderful end to his life. And living in a small apartment with his cat.
Wow.
So
And someone you knew him? Like,
somebody
or
at
somebody at
in
your
the
show
show
at the Missoula Art
recognized
Museum.
Clive.
Okay.
And he was super handsome.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've got about 6 pieces I've never finished with wonderful quotes from his life.
Well,
But-
I have this interesting thing that you and me have shared recently is my landlord gave me these boxes, and they're full of old scrapbooks and full of old photographs of a family here in Billings. And I recognize some of the people, and there's history of Kirks Grocery in there. And I had given them to you, and there's a ton of photographs in there. And so you had given them back to me to harvest some things out of. And so I saw Roger yesterday, and I was like, hey, Roger. So Jane uses photographs, and I use paper, and I have these things, and I'm just before these start going into the world. Do you care? And he's like, well, what are they? And I was like, they're photographs from your sister and your brother, and things going back to the 50s, camps they attended here in Montana, and all this stuff. And he's like, oh no, Jane makes good work. No, she can use those photographs.
Nice.
And I was like, well, I got all this paper, and he's like, we got so much family stuff,
Awesome.
So I wanted to let him know, and he doesn't care.
Good. Well, when you have your show here in July, everybody can come see what you've made out of.
Yeah.
You're part of the archive.
Yeah, that'll be good. That will be good.
Um,
So back to this family. Is there something under? I just want to remind everybody out there that everything you've seen on this table with these masks, these 4 or 5 large-scale things, was made in the last 2 months, as well as. This is something. I think you need to remind people.
Well, and if
the
anybody was
amount of
interested,
work.
this isn't going to be part of my show at the Yellowstone, so any of this would be for sale if anybody cared.
Oh, okay. Let's bring that up. At things you see over at Kirks. So we've been showing Jane's work at Kirks Grocery since we opened, and we had a solo show of hers that was just beautiful. I guess about 4 or 5 months ago. And we do sell her work. You can find it on our website. But if you're out there and you see something right here, one of these beautiful silhouettes, this woman here on the beach,
I'll show you my dog. People like this is the
you
little
can
dog. I
contact
have a
us
big
right
dog.
here. Direct message us. Call me tomorrow.
That's right. We'll figure out a price because I
Yeah.
don't have one.
These are amazing. I think these really are so strong, the silhouettes. They even add another layer to the remembrance, you know, because I have on my mom's wall at my mom's house here on Lewis Avenue, there's 3 silhouettes in our hallway. The only pictures in my mother's hallway is a silhouette of me, a silhouette of my sister, and a silhouette of my brother. The black on black construction paper. Mine says God is love under it. It's the only one with any handwriting on it. And you know, but I find it interesting that they were made over the course of my brother's 7 years younger than me. So he went to Burlington Elementary and he made that at Burlington, and then, you know, my sister made it 2 years later, and then I made it 4 years later, like this cultural silhouette series, which I don't know if it still exists. Do you think kids are out there getting their silhouettes made,
don't
Mary?
think so.
You're in schools.
That's true. I'm in art education. I have not seen silhouettes lately. But the thing is, Jane Deschner's work could inspire silhouettes.
But what I mean,
works.
and it's kind of the same paper. The paper the silhouettes are on speak to this exact paper that's on the back. It's like,
Well, didn't they use the black was the silhouette and the white was the black was the silhouette. The white was the back.
Yeah,
So it's the
it is,
kind
but
of
it's the
reverse.
same kind of fuzzy, like, you know, it's
yeah.
construction paper or whatever this kind of paper
Album.
is. I'm a
Photo
paper guy,
album
so I'm
paper,
always
yeah.
doing it.
And I love the way you stitch the pieces of them together, which you can kind of see as you move over here to the...
Oh yeah,
Lady
all by
on the
hand
beach.
because I can watch Rachel.
And more photo corners here, black on black.
Yeah, I forgot to put them on that dog, so they aren't on that dog. But anyway,
Which way you want to turn? You want to talk about your filing system?
well you can. So
Looking for 50,000
so
pictures.
if you
50,000
turn around, Mary, all
pictures.
those
50,000.
like buckets or those containers are full of snapshots.
Separated by
back
Y, which was a show we had some of at Kirks.
There's a bunch of
Puzzles, leisure activities, beach. I like optimism on this sticker.
Oh, that's a New York subway.
Oops,
I'm
sorry.
going to come in so everybody can kind of take a look here.
Oh, and I love that when you use these ones that are, you know, this photograph that obviously you didn't draw and someone else drew on that, you know, and just that moment that someone built this school days thing, you know.
So I used to be part of Poets on the Prairie, and I'd go out to schools and teach collage, where they would make a self-portrait of things, not what they looked like, but what they were about. And so I was out in the Heights someplace, and these couple of 6th grade boys got all done, and we'd make them out of magazine pages, and they just sat there while everybody else was working, and they went through like a Vogue, because I take fashion magazines, and they went through this like Vogue or whatever it was, and with a Sharpie they defaced every photograph in it. They drew mustaches, they drew beards, they drew everything they could. They were diligent.
That's great.
In their page after page after page after page.
Yeah.
They were much more connected to that, but it was an awesome insight into their adolescent brains.
Yeah, and that was, I brought this up because we were looking at this guy over here who was just like classic, of course.
That's a found photo, but
Yeah, that's what that's what was starting the conversation. And I love if you come down just a little bit more, we can give a shout out to our friend Sonny.
there's Sunny. Yep, Sunny's piece that Shane gave me for Christmas.
Sunny Stone Blue. Billings artist.
And one of the reasons I gave it to you for Christmas is, besides at one point I saw you show a little interest, was that he was inspired by you, by these heads and these tail pennies from stories you had told about, you know, good luck, bad luck, as well as you had made jewelry and used pennies in your artwork. And I mean, that is a direct influence you did on a 16-year-old kid, and I love that you have that, and it's right there.
And Stan has another question, Jane. Jane, the act of stitching is so integral to your work. May I ask, what is your earliest memory of sewing?
So my mother was a home ec major in college, and when I was in junior high, we took home ec. So the first thing you made was placemats, and then you made an apron, and then you made, and then she died, and then we made gathered skirts and crop tops, and I made bunches and bunches. So that was, there's that connection back to that, as well as that's when I first started sewing, like on machines and stuff. And when my kids were little, I would make stuff every night, whether it was sewing or knitting, because it was there the next day. Nobody ate it, nobody got it dirty, it didn't disappear, it was still there.
So you grew up in
Kansas.
Kansas. So did you grow up in like some sort of, just because you're telling me this, it seems like you never let your hands be idle. Did you grow up like in a farm or something where there was constantly stuff happening? Like you stayed really busy, like as a family, or you
No, I
acquired
grew
your
up
practice
in.
just through?
It's just me. My dad worked for the university, so it's just me. It's just my compulsion.
Whoa, yeah. Her compulsion is amazing. If you could
Yeah,
all
your
be here right
compulsion
now
is the delight
and just-
of many people.
Yeah,
That's the
just
thing.
see the amount, and
I've said. So over here behind this plant is
Behind the plants.
my
Here we come.
comfort blanket. So I'll show you this. So Liza Lou, who is if you're familiar, she's an artist who has
you have
worked
the
with
book there.
beads, and she did a giant. Took her 5 years of a whole kitchen with everything in it in beads, and she's become a very community-oriented, work together kind of artist. So when all this happened, she started this thing called Apart Together, and she was, as many people did, going through their closets and stuff, cleaning things out. You're stuck at home, so you clean things out. Well, she was going through the closet in her bedroom and found the blanket that she had as a child that a friend of her mother's or her aunt's had made for her. And she got to thinking about what if we get people to make comfort blankets out of, they don't go buy anything, you don't do anything, you just make them out of something that means something to you. And so this is what I made over a while.
like a month.
Yeah, it
I
took
know
me
people are still building quilts from like 10 years ago.
It
so.
took me a lot of thinking about what I would put in it. So there's everything from, I'm sure people who've had babies recognize that the pink and blue stripes at the bottom. It's what they wrap your baby in after you've had it in the hospital. And I took away my granddaughter Ruby's blanket.
What's up, Ruby?
Well, she was newborn. She didn't care about it. I don't know. And just everything in here means something to me.
Yeah, well, I love that. I don't know if it was John's, the outer edge of this blanket that made its way into like a snaking line. Amoeba-ish line.
My son John's sucking his thumb. Why am I
I
sucking his
love
thumb
that
blanket?
you just kept that whole edge somewhere in some box, probably labeled old something.
So this black stripe across the top, we had our Reckless show, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I went online and Googled Reckless, and there was a clothing company for like 20-year-olds that had clothes with Reckless on them.
Uh-huh.
So I ordered some sweatpants, and I didn't need the tie around the waist. So that's the tie around the waist.
From the
of my
Reckless show?
Reckless sweatpants.
Reckless was a show that Jane curated and put over at Kirks, and it was 10 different artists, mainly from Montana.
Our mixed group.
Yeah, the Mixed Group, which is a group that's been around since 2007.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. And it was a great show, bringing in artists, great artists, introducing me to more artists.
So if anybody, just go to Apart Together on Instagram or on Facebook, and she wants anybody to make a blanket out of anything. So
And her name's right here. This is
it's Liza Lou.
it's Liza Lou. Here's a book from her.
Why don't you
And she's
turn
really
that so
wonderful.
I don't have to walk around?
She's really a wonderful communitarian. This is Gordon's word, communitarian kind of artist. She's worked with women in Africa to help her do the beading and all kinds of stuff. She's just warm and wonderful. And anyway, so that was fun to do. Something to think about.
Excellent. So this is John Lodge. John Lodge, do you have anything you want to say about Jane? I mean, you guys
Well, Jane,
come on in.
as we've seen here, Jane is like a continuous art making from the start of the day to the end of the day, focused, planned. It's like she's in, I mean, all of this work, as we've seen here, is very human. It's about emotion, it's about the human spirit, death, life, stories, narrative. It's interesting, we just talked about her stitching. Interfaced with that are more or less, you could think of these as being grids.
Uh-huh.
All of her, this is what I'm
It is a grid.
This is what I'm totally fascinated with, is that we see all this and it's
And the silhouettes.
important, all that, there's really minimal orientation or decoration in the work. And if there is, it's existing. So she's not making decoration and ornamentation, she's taking all of this emotion and this visceral humanity and plugging it into a grid, interfacing not artistic or well-written items with this, the pure spirit. I mean, the language in an obituary is from the family, it is edited, a lot of times it's exaggerated, right? But still, it's real. It's real writing, interfaced with real snapshots, a lot of them. Some of them are studio shots, but still, it's very methodical.
Yeah.
Snapshots, the photography, everywhere you see here, is like people taking pictures out of love and recording their family.
Yeah.
And it's what you see in millions and millions and thousands of pictures here everywhere. The one thing I just, a simple thing, is that everybody everywhere, more or less, when they take a picture of their family, lines everybody up and they take their picture. That's like universal. It doesn't matter if they're in a museum, if they're at the opera, if they're on a picnic, if they're...
Line up, family picture time.
It's a universal style, and there's not much, other things going on. So all of this comes to my work, and I see this methodical manufacturing. She's manufacturing. This isn't flowing, in the moment expressionism.
No.
Where you're, you're going with the flow, and the work takes you somewhere.
Well, it's conceptual art. It's found art.
It's conceptual.
It's
and so
found object art. I mean, if we even move object in the realm of idea, which I love.
yeah, and it's the concept. So it really informs my work, which is without narrative, without any story, without any feeling,
Oh,
without
John,
any connection
that's not
to humanity.
It's not
Maybe
true.
my own feeling. You don't argue with me with this, okay?
I will.
So here is the difference. But the thing is, it's not. I work in grids. I mean, that's what I do. I call it planned random. That's the essence, okay? And it's the experience of just purely being visual. So there's always a grid referenced, which is the form, and then there's randomness that flows through, right?
Yep.
And then that's the combination of the two gives you a purely visual experience. The grid is what Jane has here also. It's fascinating that the type font she uses is there's about 3 fonts on all these works that she's ever used. There's not, that just displays the,
Are all the
the
fonts
methodicalness
maybe
of
the
it.
same font?
She takes this,
Wouldn't matter.
this thing is digital, it's interfaced with such a methodical sort of process that in a way it's very similar to my work. In fact, my work might even be more, well obviously it's more random. Now for instance, but here's where I get my inspiration from Jane this is her series of quotes that she does. This is one of my favorite pieces that she's made that's a constant
I
inspiration.
can only see the back, John.
I know that, I'm looking at it. I'm going to turn it.
Let us have a second to focus.
This is Jane. She didn't make this for me. This is one of the quotes. And when I see this is the essence of my work. Is stripping things down. It's, it could be called
thank you,
minimalism.
John, because it's hard to see.
Nothing is more real than nothing. Samuel Beckett. Simplicity.
Okay, that's
Here's another one that comes from Jane.
Jane, what's the
Here you
paper
go.
on the nothing is more real than nothing? Because it's not a photograph.
It is a photograph.
someone's-
It's the back.
It's the back of the photograph.
It's the back of the photograph, like on the two pieces with the masks on. I used the back of the photograph.
Do you remember what's on the other side?
It doesn't matter.
Because nothing's more real than nothing.
That's right.
I
And here
like-
it is. It doesn't matter. Speaking of that, here's another. And these I collect Jane's work, so I purchased
John, I
these from
believe, is
galleries.
Jane's biggest collector.
He is.
Here's another one that says
And
everything.
inspiration.
This is like Zen. This is like the 12-step program. What did I say it was like?
Well, I don't think
all
it's
of
quite
the-
like a 12-step
Okay,
program.
here it is. I don't know. I don't care. And it doesn't make any difference.
I think that's the opposite of a 12-step program.
Jack Kerouac. No, it's trying to control things that are out of your control. I don't know. I don't care. And it doesn't make any difference. Okay, so that I can think about that. I see that when I'm going down the stairs in the morning. I see that. And it's okay.
This hangs
Settle
in your
down.
house. This is
So-
one of the ones that hangs. I know
Yeah.
that nothing is more real than nothing's usually
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
And then here's another one that
This is by the back
loosens
door,
things
the
up. Here's
David Lynch,
here's
right?
the essence of Jerry Saul's new book, How to Be an Artist. Here's the whole book condensed into this that Jane harvested from her infinite, selection of truth. The concept of absurdity is something I'm attracted to. David Lynch. That's the essence
So I haven't read the book
Of-
yet, actually, to be honest.
of,
Jerry
of
Saltz's
art.
book?
No, I haven't read it. So
It's short. I haven't either.
So there's all of that flowing through all this also.
Yeah.
So that's Jane.
So, do you have any other questions, Shane?
well, I mean, I think I want to say that first, I just want to make a plug for Kirks a little bit. So Kirks
Please.
Grocery, we're in Billings, Montana. We're located on Minnesota Avenue, and we're an art gallery, kind of cultural center, community center, which has been a little different for us during the COVID-19. We had a lot of performance, so we are working on these live streams. We have a lot of things happening soon, and this is our very first not at Kirks live stream. And I was real happy to come to your studio.
Studio. Yeah, I think I like to see artist studios.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating to see where people work.
Well, I think, when you come in here, as a kid, when you're like, I want to be a professional artist, and I think I said this to you and John last week in the space next door, that did you ever think you would just have this? It's perfectly set up for how you work. You have your frames down here, which are
hold on.
integral to your work.
Let's follow you.
I think a lot of, the frames are, I don't know, they're part of your work in a way that they're the thrift store, they're also found, they're also from somebody else's life. You're not having them made for your show, so it's just another part of the found art, and I love you got them cataloged. Everything's just so perfect. Every artist studio is different. I don't know. There's so much. I feel we could go a whole nother hour,
Well,
that's
I
the thing
just
with
had
Jane.
one-
We're halfway in.
I had one question for Jane.
Sure.
Jane, when you talk about your work and when you talk about life, it often brings you to tears. Is that something that, what is that experience like for you? Is it sad? Is it energizing?
What is it like? So, I think, honestly, what it is I spent a lot of years in denial. Went to therapy. Once I lost that mechanism, I just can't not. And you know what? It's okay. It just is. So I feel these things, and I'm older, and I don't care. I could not talk, and then I wouldn't get emotional, but it's important, so I do. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
so
for me, I
brave.
love it because it's so rare for people to be honest in general. And I try to be honest in conversations, and I feel that you channel so much through your artwork of humanity. Like we say, you have to be in a raw state at all moments to know which sentence in this obituary is the essence. You deal in the essence of things in a little bit. So or people. So when you find that kernel, when you find that nugget, that's the most moving part of a person. And I think that, like, what I love about you is you're brutally honest. We've had some great conversations, and I love it. You know, I don't like this person, da da da, whatever, da da da, da da da. This food sucks. Like, you know, people won't even say this food sucks. They'll just be like, I don't know, it wasn't all right. And you'll be like, no, this food sucks. Maybe not in that terminology.
I think I'd be more polite. That wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, but I mean, you're honest. No,
Yeah.
you're honest in a way that a lot of people aren't. And I think to do that, you have to be open. And I think when I see you cry, to me it means that you are overflowing with love at that moment. Almost is how I feel. Like it's like this expansion. It's this extension of your art. You're just like, I can't contain it. Like it's like a huge sigh of beauty. Like, you know, and when I see you cry, I'm like, I love it. I mean,
Thank
you know,
you.
and it almost makes me cry. We've cried a little bit, you know. So I just love that Jane is open and honest, and you couldn't get to all these essence of humanity without understanding. And I think
the snapshot's the perfect way to get there, and because it's people take family photos, they take them to make memories and have memories, and it's been this way. When you first asked, for a long time when I was in graduate school. I graduated in 2001. It was my first project with snapshots, and it was a distance learning program, and I got on a panel at the College Art Association, and the guy who was the head of the program in Vermont, Doug Ashford, said, "Don't cry on the panel." And I said, well, you know,
I don't want to got someone different.
I might, you know, so it's just been this way for a long time, and
Maybe we'll do an event where you're like a judge at Kirks. You know, we have two people in the community who have a beef, and we put Jane up on the judge, and she, you know, you listen to their sides, and you take the kernels, and you. I'd like to see the justice you dispense to humanity.
We will see. We need a lot of it these days.
Yeah.
More empathy, more understanding, more caring.
Yeah.
Than seems to be out there in some places these days. So.
Well, I think we should just wrap it up.
I think we should wrap it up. Shane, you said that Jane is honest when she doesn't like food. Did you want to give a shout out to the provider of our dinner tonight?
I do. Oh, and that is not what we're
No,
talking
we haven't
about.
eaten it yet.
We haven't eaten. We've had our appetizers. We love Angela over at the Ravens Cafe.
Inside the Yellowstone Art Museum.
Inside the Yellowstone Art Museum. I used to work there. We mentioned that on a couple things, and she always makes wonderful soup. I mean, no matter what, you can go to Angela's. It's going to be a great cup or bowl of soup and a roll. And tonight we got some salmon from her that we're going to have right after this. Jamaican jerk salmon with a brown sugar glaze. And she has prepared it, and we're just going to heat it up ourselves. I think it takes about 10 minutes in a 400-degree oven or 350 or something like that. And it's going to be delicious, and we're going to have food, and we're going to be eating, and we're going to probably watch this a little bit back. If there's anybody who has any more questions about Jane Deschner, I'm just going to do some spieling about Kirks. We had some T-shirts. Please ask Jane a question if you have any. You got about...
We have a lot of compliments, Jane, just so much.
Oh,
awesome, Jane. Thanks, Jane and Shane. Mind blown, Jane. I wish I could hug all of you. I hear you.
Oh.
Methodical, minimalist, yet... Yes, but filled with so much compassion. I love the depth of feeling. Thank you. I would accept Jane justice in any dispute.
Well, that's nice.
Another thing.
It's a new event we're going to have at Kirks, On the Street Justice,
Justice.
delivered by Jane Deschner.
Yeah, well, anybody can shoot. Can I just say something? I'm so... I didn't prepare this or anything. I should have written it down. I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Because it's an openness and an acceptance and a creativity that's most welcome here.
In Billings?
In Billings and just in life and my life and life in general. But yes.
Well, as I mentioned it earlier, but I mean, you two are big examples. I mean, for me, I have done a lot of things in my life, and currently I do Kirks, and I love it. And for me, I just want to be an artist 100% of the day, every day, and we all figure out how to do that, at every moment that we can. And
But before you, I didn't have a place here.
I know. It blew my mind.
I know. And
I'm at the museum, and I'm like, okay, John's work, Jane's work.
We've helped make your place. I mean, all of us, we're all working
you were
together.
all here. I mean, I just feel like I came to Billings, and everything was here except someone to say, look at all this incredible art. And there is places doing incredible art.
There are.
But I'm saying Jane's work just fit into my... Well, I love humanity, so she got me there.
I mean, Kirks is for the common good. Yeah, I mean.
Right.
So, and John is just like, me and John get together and we'll talk. We'll talk until we're late for our appointment about conceptual ideas
and music
and
all that kind of stuff that I can't talk to him about.
And I don't know. For me, Kirks is I just want to. I mean, this is lofty, maybe. I want to just unlock everybody to art and just know that anybody can do art in any format. You can like crinkle paper and throw it into a corner, right, John, and have people do that with you, and that becomes art. Like I missed this example up at MSCP.
Anybody can be creative.
Yeah.
Anybody can be creative, and it might be art. It might be cooking. It might be writing. It might be.
Let's end on that. What constitutes art? Like, what would you?
Just being creative.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever takes you to a. I hadn't
You
even
lose
thought,
time and space, maybe.
It's not linear. It's just an expression. It's just a soulful, whatever thing.
Which can come from like things as simple as like, I mean, I know that the Elson Art Museum is doing the women's work thing, and and even you at the doilies, you're remembering these things that are creative, that are art, that no one cares about. You're picking up these. However long
men didn't care about.
Well, they didn't get yelled at because their greasy heads were not on the back of the chair, that they could take the doily off and wash it. There we go.
I don't know where we are now, but I'm happy to be in the community, and I feel I walked into the community and everything was here. And we talked about my landlord and the boxes he's given us, and he's been such a inspiration in itself that someone lets us do what we do at Kirks Grocery and is supported. I mean, I know you just rent a space from someone and who cares? They're just your landlord,
But things just percolate together when it's right. And I guess it was right.
Yeah, because you're going to get all those photos, and I'm going to get all this great paper, letters and letters.
Well, and we have this great gallery.
Yeah, we do.
We do. So thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. We're going to go eat the Ravens Cafe right now. It's going to be delicious. We'll see you. Well, actually, we will not be live streaming next week. We will only be open at Kirks. We're open from 3 to 9 next Friday for our new show, Tread and Unravel, which goes up. It's Mary Serby, our wonderful, wonderful.
That's
flip that
me.
thing. Flip
That's
that around.
Me. I'm working on that.
She's it's her artwork, which is some stitched work as well, completely different, similar materials, completely different.
Well, I'm
techniques.
also using embroidery floss, but
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I'm
stitching
saying.
into oil paint. I'm stitching into canvas, and then kind of using that paint to replicate what I had thread doing. It's kind of it got conceptual. Shane's seen the work. It got pretty conceptual.
It's great, and it's growing daily. And so that is going to open. So we will not be live streaming next week, but you can come to Kirks. We're open 3 to 9 p.m. next Friday. The show will be up, and it's going to be great. It's Terry Carson as well, some etched glass, sandblasted glasses to be exact, and some very large-scale paintings. The great Montana curator friend, Terry Carson.
And then the Friday after that will be a Facebook Live.
With LB's Pupiversary, the dog who you always see doing stuff. In 2 weeks, we'll be having a party on the street.
Wait, 2 weeks is Facebook Live with us talking about Tread and Unravel. And then 3 weeks is another Facebook Live event.
Somebody's got to be
There's so much that goes on, it's hard to keep up with it. In two weeks, it'll be Facebook Live, Tread and Unravel, Terry Carson, whose work many of you know, my own work. Let me try to flip it around when I say that. My own work. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks. And then in 3 weeks, LB, who many people know from the gallery and from this very live stream, will have his 1-year pupiversary during a particularly ridiculous out on the street if you're in Billings, or Facebook Live if you're anywhere else. I think that's everything. Thanks so much, John and Jane, for welcoming us into your home.